Good afternoon, guys, and welcome back to another episode of my weekly watch list. So today we'll be going through some of the trades I took last week. We'll go through my watch list this week, and then of course what I call indicators, so these being DXY, gold and oil. So just to start off with, this is a trade that I took last week. USD Swiss, ended up getting around sort of 3% for this, so I won't go through the whole analysis, and then I'll come back to this later. But so on the 4 hour, what we had this sort of break of this wedge, broke to the downside, made a new low, retraced to the 88%, rejected that area of liquidity. We had a big wick rejection with the hammer, and then we broke down the counter trend line, retested, and then broke down to the downside, fulfilling our 90% rule. So if I just adjust these, you can see this one was around sort of 2%, and this one was around 0.75%, I believe. And then I also had another scaling around here that ran about 1.25%. So overall, about 3% on this trade. I did give this one out as well in the Slack community, so hopefully some guys caught it. There's a few areas of entry on here, so that was one of the trades I had. Another one was GBP CAD. So this one I got knocked out of break even after taking some profit. But you can see here, so we had this break retracement to the 50% area of liquidity, had this spinning top, ended off of this, and then sort of had 37.6% stop loss, 37.6 pip stop loss, and then target was at the minus 27%. So I removed the majority of my profit here, just because of price was sort of stalling, and it's not really a pair I'm too comfortable with. And of course, the way oil's been, didn't really want to take any chances, and especially with the GBP as well. So took the majority of my profit here for around 200 pips, and then 25% got stopped out at break even. So that's always a good point of why we should always move our stop loss to break even and try and keep aware of these sort of profit areas, and take a majority of profit at these areas. So then to go through some of my losses, so for example CAD Swiss, so this one went quite well with dollar Swiss, however it was a case of just unluckiness or just potentially the market not really playing out. So what we had this high here, that was sort of where I based my stop loss from, 20 pips above that. We had this sort of even star formation, or sort of not quite an even star because the bearish engulf isn't as big as a bullish, but went in line with my thoughts. So I went to get into this, and then I got stopped out for around 38.9 pips, so it was roughly 1%. And then price come back into play, and then would be running quite nicely now at around 160 pips profit. So not too much of an issue because of the 1% loss I took on here. I've recovered that on my scaling alone on USD Swiss. And then the last one was entered the USD. So this was one where we broke the counter trend line, then come up to make a double top. I entered off here, and then it sort of impulsively broke, and then I got stopped out. So sort of two trades there, 1% losses, so not a problem because then USD Swiss ended up taking them. So ended up in a positive week. So just currently preparing for my funded account at the moment, as after passing the challenge. So just currently waiting for that to happen. So just currently trading on a small personal account at the moment. So now let's go into our sort of watch list, starting off with our indicators. So DXY on the monthly. On the monthly, we can just see the uptrend that we've spoken about, and of course, as it is a new month, we have to check out the last monthly candlestick. So here you can see the spinning top. Then we got this Greystone Doji, which indicates indecision, possibly reversal coming. So now I expect a bearish candle to come this month. So I expect a bearish month on the whole. We are above the monthly 50 MA as well. Weekly, we have this trend line that's been broken. We've then retraced and then faked back into the trend, come back out, and then overall stayed below. And now we've had an even star formation, just sort of above that weekly 50 MA. So looking for this to sort of continue, looking for some sort of retracement within this area of liquidity, and then push down to the downside. Then on the daily, we can just see that price is below the 50 MA, and we've sort of formed a double top here on this last major high. So although price broke this trend line, it hasn't broken any structure, it hasn't broken the last major high, and then we've seen price now come down, break below the daily 50, and looks to be continuing down to the downside. So just looking for it to sort of break this area here of 98.29 and then continue to the downside potentially. 4 hour, we can just see obviously where we haven't broken that trend. So we broke above this lower high. However, we failed to break above this lower high, so just sort of consolidate between these areas, and then we've rolled over to the downside, breaking below the previous low of the trend. So DXY is looking pretty bearish at the moment, so I'll be interested to see how it reacts at 98.29 level. Just shown here. So if it breaks and retests that, we've got quite a lot of free space for price to impulsively break to the downside. Next one is gold. So gold, of course, we kept going on about the monthly spinning tops, and it is paying dividends. So here you can see that we've got these double monthly spinning top, which we normally expect a reversal after this. Then we've got this big bullish engulfing, which I said I'm expecting a retracement. So we got a bullish engulfing to retrace these candles. However, although the candlestick wick is above, I don't personally mind. I like to see the candlestick body close above, so therefore I'm comfortable with keeping my short bias. And then we've sort of just rejected that and stayed below, and now you can see price is just currently making a spinning top, but it's the start of the month. So on the weekly, we can just see prices overextended at the moment, so nothing really to sort of suggest that we're going to go any further to the upside. We then have this gravestone doji 2 weeks ago, and then obviously we've had a sort of pressure on the doji, but nothing at break above, and now price is just sort of looking to become bearish. And we're also above the weekly 50 MA. So on the daily, you can just see that we've got this daily trend that's been broken. We made a low, then we've retraced to the golden pocket, and now we've reversed from there. Now we're breaking below the previous high and retesting it perfectly, and now I'm looking for this to continue to the downside, and currently above the daily 50 MA. Next is the 4 hour. So on the 4 hour, we can just see that obviously breaking that trend line, we can retrace more to sort of the 88% when we zoom in, and then we've now broken below the 4 hour 50. We're creating a spinning top, so I expect further downside momentum from here. So just expecting for this to now come down, break the previous low that we formed, and then retest or retrace, and then come to the downside. So that is gold, looking bearish on that. And then oil, of course, always a bit of a tough one because TradingView doesn't go or doesn't cover the negative prices. We can't really use fibs, or I have got a fib on there, but how sort of strong that is, I'm not too sure. But obviously monthly, so after impulsive April, it saw $49 a barrel down to $20. We saw May go from $20 down to minus $36 a barrel. Since oil went negative due to the rollover in contracts from April to May, prices retraced massively and now sits at $19.70 a barrel. Is this a start of the reversal or simply a retracement for a retest of a wedge? So it said wedge, but it's more of a channel here. So we've got these sort of lower highs and slight lower lows. We've then come up, made this spinning top, but overall we've retested this bottom of the channel here. However, we have rejected the previous all-time low, although we know that we did go down sort of minus $35 a barrel, which is all the way down there. So on the weekly, we can just see that after this big impulse and then corrected, then impulsively broke again. Of course, then went down to sort of minus $35 a barrel due to that rollover in contracts. And then overall, we've seen sort of the week before closed just below the current major low, whereas this one is now broken above it. So this is just the major area before. So obviously it's an interesting one because we can't really go negative in terms of real price in that sense, or at least I don't think we can. And obviously that's why brokers would have suspended it. So obviously we're looking sort of more bullish. We've got these two double wicks now. So daily looks quite nice for a short. Obviously, as I said, fibs are a bit subjective at the moment because of we can't really tell what the bottom was because of course it was around minus $35 a barrel, but TradingView doesn't show that, so we can only sort of trade what we see. So looking at sort of 71% in line with liquidity, and then of course the daily 50 MA is just above. That's why I've sort of got the higher fibs in place as well. But we could potentially reverse from here with Friday's close being a spinning top. And then 4 hour, you can just see we've got this sort of trend line here and on that 71% fib. So the first pair we're going to look at is AUD JPY. So AUD JPY, you can see we've got a monthly downtrend. Obviously broke down, come up, corrected, made this new lower high, broke down to make a lower low. Now retraced to a new lower high, 61.8%, and now we're looking for that entry area. So weekly, you can just see the channel was broken, made the new low, retraced, and now you're just seeing that big wick rejection of the 71%. So nice gravestone doji. We've obviously rejected this area here with liquidity, and now we're looking for price to go lower. Of course, we did have a double spinning top, which is a sign of a reversal, and then a gravestone doji, so really looking bearish from here. So I really like the look of this. Then on the daily, what we've got is this trend line here. We've now broken out of that trend line. We've retraced a little bit higher than I'd like. However, I know that we've got the 71% here, so I'm not too worried. We've got this evening star that's broken back through the daily 50 MA, and now I'm looking for sort of price to sort of retrace slightly and then come further down. On the 4 hour, we can see that, however, price has broken a nice level, key level of 69, which is a psychological level. So now we've broken below that, broken below the 4 hour 50, and then retraced and retested both of them. I'm looking for this to continue to the downside, and there's quite a lot of downside potential here. So AUD JPY looks very nice. Next one I watch this is Aussie dollar CAD. So we can just see here, if we go into the monthly, we can see that we've got this sort of downtrend. We've then broken all the way down, retraced massively, and now we retrace into this level here, this 0.91074. So obviously this impulsive month, we kind of expect this because we had that spinning top, so it's kind of a morning star. However, because we haven't broken above the structure, I'm not too concerned, and we are below the monthly 50 MA. On the weekly, we can just see that price has retraced all the way back up, and now we've got a spinning top on the weekly 50 MA, so I'm not too worried because I think this could be a fake out, so I'd expect maybe a bearish candle within the next week. But I'd be interested to see, it could just be a retest of the 50 MA, or it could be a push higher. But for me, I think we could see a fake out here and push to the downside. On the daily, you can just see sort of that here, that curved sort of reversal. In that sense, we are above the daily 50. And then on the 4 hour, we do have a 4 hour trend line that we can use. We've now broken below that. And we're just looking for, what I'm looking for is price to sort of come down, make a new low. So something like this, where we just make a new low, break below that higher low, retrace slightly, whether it's one of our fib levels in the 50 MA, and then come down lower. So that's roughly what I'd be looking for on Australian dollar CAD. Next pair is CAD Yen. So of course CAD Swiss is still in play, the one that I spoke about at the beginning, but of course there's not really room for an entry right now. So CAD Yen, go on to the monthly. We can see that we've got that wedge. We broke out that wedge. Then we had a spinning top close for last month, so that could just be a retest of the higher low that we broke before, and now we could be looking to push further to the downside. On the weekly, we can just see here that we've now broken this trend line. Then we've come all the way down impulsively, so we need a retracement. We've had that retracement. We couldn't come back above this area. We retested this very nicely, broke below the sort of higher low, which I think would be off of one of the sort of trend lines, and then we've now continued this to the downside. So now we've gone daily, we can just see this sort of trend here, which is where that high low come from. So we've broke below that high low now, so looking for that retracement or that retest. And then of course we have sort of got that even star on the 61.8%. It's just going from sort of high to the low, then retested that trend line at 61.8%, and the 50 MA, or below the daily 50 MA too. So looking for this to continue down. So when we go on the 4 hour, we can just see if we have got any area to sort of retrace or retest, and then we can obviously look to continue to the downside. So now what I'd probably expect is some sort of harami candle. So like I've said here, looking for a harami candle, which is like an inside bar, just to sort of retest an area, retrace slightly before we continue that momentum from the evening star. So on the 4 hour, we can just see we kind of had that retest because we retested this previous high low with this inverted hammer. Nice sort of tweezer top rejection up here. Now we've come down, broke the 4 hour 50 MA, maybe see a small retracement, and then we come down to the downside. However, because we created this new low, I'd probably anticipate we're probably just going to come through now that we've retested that. So CAD Yen, I'm looking at shorts. Next pair on our watch list is Euro USD, so of course one of our majors. So on this you can just see that on the monthly we have got this wedge. We've now got sort of 3 months worth of rejections, I think, yeah, 3 months worth of rejections of that sort of bottom of the channel. And now we're just looking for sort of price to give us some direction. So first we had that sort of hammer, then we had a doji, and then we've had just a further rejection, and now just looking to see whether price is going to react. Obviously the monthly 50 MA is above price. Weekly we've got this downwards channel, we've faked out of it, and now we're back into the channel, and we are just maintaining below that weekly 50 MA now, after sort of 2 tests of it, and the weekly supports our resistance at 1.1. So quite a strong level there. Just sort of watching for price, see whether we can now reverse from this area and come further to the downside. Daily, you can just see we've got this wedge that we broke out from, similar to USD Swiss, 88%, and then we saw this push higher because on Friday we saw, because it was the end of the month, the banks and institutions had to fill a load of orders by 4 o'clock. So then at around sort of 3:30, 3:45, 4 o'clock, we see this big flood of orders coming through into the market, and obviously these are billions pounds or dollars worth of orders. So there was heavy sort of selling of the dollar. And then obviously this caused Euro USD, sort of Pound USD all to surge up. So if you got stopped out or you wasn't quite sure why your analysis didn't go quite your way, that would be why. There is a lot more to it, but by all means, if you want any questions on that, by all means drop me a message, as I won't go through all of it now, but there is a lot more to it. So on the daily, we can see that liquidity here. We've got this 50 MA that we are slightly above, but it's a spinning top close. Then we've got this 88% as well. Then going on to the 4 hour, we can just see that price is retesting that trend line here. So broke it, and we never really retested it. well, we did kind of, but now we might just be retesting it. We are also matching the previous high, so we haven't broken it. So looking for this to potentially go down from here, kind of like a double spinning top. Like a double top, and then break down the 4 hour 50 and then go lower. So not sort of one of the main ones I'm watching, but as it is our most traded pair, then of course it's important to keep our eyes on it, like the other major pairs. So that's Euro USD, looking for that to sort of go to the downside. Next is Pound Aussie. It's one of my favourite pairs. Of course, this moves so quickly that we have to be careful in terms of getting an entry, because you don't want to get the wrong entry. But overall, for the month, we saw a very bearish month, which is why it featured in my videos for the last sort of 2-3 weeks. Then we saw price come down, make this bearish engulfing, reject that top of the wedge, and now just seeing if price can push further to the downside. So when we go on to the weekly, we can just see that this fib reverse, or fib we were talking about, has played out well. So this was the fib we were talking about last week, from the high to the low, which was here. So then we got a 38.2 retracement, I believe it was. And then, yeah, it's 38.2, and then we've continued with that shooting star. That minus 27% has now been touched. Minus 61.8, just below that weekly 50 MA, but weekly 50 MA naturally causing some heavy support. So off the back of that, we can remove our fib. And now we're looking for price to retrace. It's currently sitting at 50%, and then look for this to continue pushing down to the downside. And it's natural to get a retracement after a shooting start anyway. So now on the daily, you can just see perfect case of sort of an RBO strategy. If you're not sure what an RBO is, it's a strategy we teach at ROS. By all means, if you want to find out more about that, by all means get in contact with me. But it's the strategy that I learned, and I've adapted it to fit my own style. Like any strategy you learn, you need to adapt it to yourself, your lifestyle, your psychology. Because naturally your psychology cannot be repeated by someone else. Even twins don't have the same psychology. So we broke out of this. We broke out of that sort of outer structure we were talking about last week. We've now come up, retested it, retraced it at 50%. We've got the daily 50 just sitting above. We've got this sort of area of support and resistance that we've kind of come close to as well. So it looks quite nice to now roll over to the downside after a retracement, which Friday helps push this up. And then we're just seeing the 4 hour, which is currently sitting above the 50 MA, but I'm not too worried because we had this head and shoulders here. We've got this 90% rule that's fulfilled here, which means that we've got some resistance here because of this is support to resistance. So it all lines up with a short. So Pound Aussie short. Obviously, Pound CAD went through at the start. So if I go back to that, you can just see sort of same with sort of what I look at GBP USD. It's come up and come back up to a major level. However, it hasn't broken it, so potentially to roll over back to the downside. Also, you can see that trend there. And if you want the analysis, by all means go check out the last video. It'll be the same on higher time frames, but I'm not really too focused on this week now that we haven't got the setup in place. So going back to GBP USD, another one we've been talking about for months or weeks. We've got this obviously monthly downtrend, which I'm sure I say every week. And then we've got this sort of evening start off of the monthly 50 MA push down, momentum carried forward to that all-time low, retraced. Then we've got this sort of spinning top, or sort of hammer kind of looks like, not really a major candle. And now we're just sitting below that 1.25 significant level. On the weekly, we can just see that bearish downtrend. Then we push back up, 61.8%. Third touch of the trend line, depending on if you count the fake out, but one touch, two touch, fake out, third touch, or fourth touch. Weekly 50 MA, 61.8. Liquidity from the spinning top here, 1.25 level. It's a really nice area to short from. However, I personally do not trade Sundays and I don't trade Mondays. So I would be looking at getting into this Tuesday or maybe after. So now just sort of looking for this to play out. So now going on to the daily, we can just see this head and shoulders formation. So the right shoulder forming within this area of liquidity, as we said last week, on the 61.8 and giving us that touch of the trend line. So now just looking for price to break out of the neckline, retest, and then come down to the downside. And of course, we are sitting right on that 50 MA at the moment, but I expect price to break that. 4 hour, just like GBP CAD and GBP, just like GBP CAD, we just see price come up 88%. This sat perfectly on that and rejected it, and now it's impulsively breaking below the 1.25 and just on that 4 hour 50 MA. So what I'm anticipating is after that low was formed, just sort of a break below, maybe a retest of this area, and then come down to the downside as shown. So the next one we are looking for, yes, there's obviously double top here as well. Just thinking, so double top here as well. 88% rejection below the 1.25. Obviously RBO in play, and looking for this to now continue to the downside. So next pair on our watch list is USD CAD. The reason why I cover this one is because although it might not be the best room for entry, I think it's important to look at the structure and look at a very good example. And of course, because of oil, I'm anticipating this is going to continue the uptrend it's in, because naturally if oil weakens, that means CAD's getting weaker and therefore USD CAD will strengthen. So here we can just see obviously the double top, the supply zone, and the spinning top forms, which would be bearish, right? However, because of sort of oil, it kind of carries forward, and that's why sometimes fundamentals do take ultimate control. So on the weekly, we can just see, if I remove this, we can just see that on the weekly, we have broken that wedge, and we're just sort of consolidating at the moment. So on the daily, we can just see prices above the 50 MA. Obviously, after the oil news, we have to be careful and interesting to watch the development. USD CAD's lagging behind, and we can see huge moves to the upside to revisit highs, which obviously goes with our GBP USD and NZD USD shorts as well. So just looking at this, we can see that obviously for daily trend line broken above, overextended, retraced nicely. We're now sort of forming a nice sort of correction, and then we're looking for this to continue to push to the upside. However, on the 4 hour, it's a bit of a different picture, and this is the thing that we need to sort of be careful, because we've got this structure here. So we've got 90% rules to start the trend, lower high. Price comes to lower high, rejects it, and comes to the downside. So now what we could be seeing is sort of high to the low. We could just be seeing a 61.8% fib retracement. And then obviously the head and shoulders we had did kind of play out last week. So left shoulder, head, right shoulder. And now we could just be seeing obviously a rejection of the 61.8, doji, and then potential reverse to the downside, or we can continue the uptrend from here. Because of the fundamental, I would prefer the uptrend. However, it's been a bit unpredictable at the moment. And then just going back to NZD USD, because I missed it because it was in with the other ones. So on the monthly, we have. Okay, so on the monthly, we can see we've got the wedge, which we broke out from. Price very extended, so we needed that retracement. Then we got the Harami retracement, which we're hoping that an impulse could be coming. Then on the weekly, we can just see that we are now sitting on that 50% fib. We've got these sort of doji, spinning top, sort of inverted hammer. So now we're just looking for price to reject that and continue its move to the downside. On the daily, you can just see that we've got this downtrend, which we then potentially faked out from last week. Obviously evening star, perfect evening star, bullish engulfing through the daily EMA, then tested this this high of the trend previous, the counter trend line before, which we broke and made that new low. So haven't broken structure in terms of this sort of correction, and then we're looking for this, and then spinning top, evening star confirmed with the bearish engulfing, back through the daily 50, back into the trend line, and now we look for keep our eye on the shorts. So then going on to the 4 hour, we can just see, obviously that was the trade that I took last week and it lost, so we can get rid of that. And we can see sort of that bigger picture. We then broke out of that, made these two sort of corrections again, and then kind of formed a double top within this area, or even triple top. And then price come up again because of the news, but now it's sort of impulsively breaking back down. And then we broke below the 4 hour 50, so potentially you can get the right entry. Obviously this sort of analysis I had before was invalid. But now we're back in that area of liquidity, back in that area of interest, so potentially could continue the short from here, and then we can look for them sort of higher time frame moves. So I believe, yeah, that's everything in the watch list. So a bit of a shorter episode this week, but that's purely just because of nature of the market. And at the end of the day, it only takes 1 or 2 good trades to make your week. For example, that dollar Swiss was say a 3% trade that is potentially going to give me another couple percent this week. And obviously a couple of losses there as well. But overall for the week, preparing for that funded account, which obviously I announced about on my Instagram a couple of days ago at the start of the week. So hopefully that inspires some of you guys. If you have any questions, by all means get in touch. I hope everyone's been productive within this time. And if you have any questions or any issues, or you'd like to know more about my journey, more about the community, or anything that we do or I do, just please drop me a message. So obviously have a great week, guys. Catch loads of pips, and I'll see you guys on the next video.